We are joined on this episode by a filmmaker who has produced films including VHS 94 and Spiral, which he also directed. His newest feature, the horror thriller Influencer, is streaming on Shudder as of May 26th. He is Kurtis David Harder. Kurt, thank you for joining us on the program here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited to talk to you. I'm really impressed by just the prolificness of your filmmaking portfolio between directing and producing. But how we always start off is just asking what gave you the bug, what got you interested in storytelling and writing and film, whether it be a person, a movie, an experience.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of just a weird kid. I think in kindergarten, I wrote down film director on like what you want to be. So I don't really remember making the choice. I think probably watching like Jurassic Park as like a very young kid and kind of those kind of movies and seeing like on TV back in the day, like kind of behind the scenes clips of movie making. And it was always kind of exciting. And then just kind of was always making little short films growing up and then got kind of more serious into it in high school and started kind of became like a camera assistant at the start and was like directing music videos and stuff.
Nice. Did you actually skip any formal schooling for that? Did you go to any kind of film school or did you just hop right into production?
No, yeah. Basically in high school, I was applying for jobs on sets and nobody's really hiring me because I was just young and didn't have any experience. I'd worked at like Dairy Queen. So what I started doing in high school is I'd find casting calls for like indie movies or different projects. And I'd go to these casting auditions and basically be like, hey, I know you're not going to cast me because I'm a terrible actor, but if I could come and just volunteer as a PA, and kind of got to meet producers that way and managed to kind of act a couple times and then actually started kind of camera assisting out of that.
Starting with the camera, did you think that was your path? Was it like being a DP, or did you always kind of have the end goal of, you mentioned writing down directing as a kid, but was it always a path toward directing, or did you think at any point it was going to kind of venture toward a different section or discipline?
Yeah, always storytelling. I was writing kind of like little novels when I was growing up and kind of always with the mindset of like, I didn't know how to write a script, so I'd write these kind of long stories that I would hope to eventually one day make into movies. So yeah, it was always kind of the goal of kind of the all encompassing, like writing, directing, filmmaking.
And you mentioned kind of cutting your teeth with the music videos and even commercials. Was that just out of necessity, as that was most commonly being filmed up in that part of the world in Calgary at the time in Canada? Or was it more you found yourself there for another reason or by design?
Yeah, it was a way. It was like a way to make ends meet a little bit. Like it was very nominal existence, barely kind of scraping by. But yeah, I basically got rejected from all the film schools I applied to, and I'd had some money saved up, and then kind of out of high school went off and made my first feature film, which was just like a drama. And then that didn't really go anywhere, so I was kind of just in the midst of trying to get the next movie off the ground. And then music videos are a great kind of medium to kind of experiment and explore without too many consequences if it doesn't work or something. So I think that was a cool kind of learning experience of how to run sets with more people on them and kind of cut your teeth, kind of jumping a little bit higher into bigger production values.
I mean, it's pretty incredible. When I was reading up on you, directing a feature at the age of 18 must have been quite an undertaking with your film Cody Fitz. What was 18-year-old Kurt like as a director? A little boisterous for sure. It was a fun learning experience because I think the biggest thing that I learned was just getting feedback, because I wrote the script. We shot the first draft of the script. And then when I edited the movie, I edited it by myself. I never showed anyone a cut of it, and then just locked it without even really taking time off of it. So I think it was kind of a funny learning experience, kind of looking back of like, no, you should get some more eyes on it and not be afraid to share work in progresses and stuff. So there's a little bit of a naivety of my own ability, I guess, probably at that age, like we all are as teenagers. Right. Yeah, I think if you ask most people, what mistakes or what they do differently, if they were, from things they did at 18, they'd probably have a pretty long list. But it sounds like at least you're able to take some of those learnings with you. And then, when you came time to get behind the camera again as a director with some of your later features like In Control and then Spiral, were you glad that you had that early experience of working on Cody Fitz, even if it wasn't perfect?
No, I think for me it's definitely been each movie you try to do something that you've never done before and learn kind of something new. And I feel like if you ever stop learning it, you're probably doing something wrong. So I think I'm happy I did that movie. Obviously, sometimes you look back and you wish you kind of spent a little more time, maybe make a couple more short films before you dive into something that's a little bit bigger. But I mean, everyone has a different path, and I don't think any one path's right or wrong.
And in addition to directing, you got an impressive number of films under your belt, as we've talked about as a producer, and we've named a few, as well as with Stillborn, Z, Superhost. Shout out to early guest of the show, Brandon Christensen, one of your collaborators with that. Did you find yourself learning from guys like Brandon and other directors during that process? I know you got into directing early, but then you kind of sort of sideways went into producing heavy. Was it full on learning from those folks and taking some good lessons from them and not the bad ones?
Yeah, no, I think that was kind of one of the cool experiences. I totally fell into producing. It was not a purposeful thing. I was kind of befriending Brandon and a bunch of other filmmakers at the time. And as a director, I was always producing my own projects. So it kind of just came natural to the fact that we were already doing all of this stuff. And so when I became just a producer, it was like, it felt like I was doing half the work, even though it's like, you're just there to support and see how other people run their own sets and how they would cover something. So yeah, you learn a lot kind of working with different people, and like Brandon's someone I really admire and kind of the kind of films he makes. And so yeah, I definitely learned a lot. I think for me coming into it, before Stillborn was the first movie that I produced as just a producer for someone else. And growing up, I didn't watch a lot of horror movies. And so it was kind of an introduction into the genre. And so Chris Ball, another producer that we work with all the time, and I, who neither of us were huge like horror aficionados, just were like, let's watch everything we can. And for like the month leading up to the shoot, every night we were watching like 2-3 kind of classic horror movies, and really kind of fell in love with the genre in the process of making that first one.
Yeah. I'm curious. You mentioned, you had always been, produced your own films out of necessity when you were directing. Do you find with this accumulated experience as a producer and doing that so frequently that it's now influenced the way you write and direct, like being more budget and schedule conscious, thinking about how you'll package the script and secure financing? Like, does that go through your head in that really creative process now that you've worked on so many different films as a producer?
Yeah. I think it's like an internal conflict for sure of kind of the producer versus the director, because of the fact that I've kind of done both so often. But I think in like net, it's a positive, because you kind of know where, as a director, when to push for things and what to push for, as opposed to just constantly fighting your producers, for example. So I think like for me as a producer, a big thing that I wanted to do when I was getting into producing is like know every department. And I think that's so like throughout, I think the only department I haven't worked at least a few days on is makeup, which I actually do still want to do. So I think like for me as a director, knowing what each department has actually like gone through from kind of a firsthand experience has been so helpful. And as a producer, you kind of understand what your producers are going through and where to kind of help them and where to kind of push for what's going to make the movie better in the end.
Yeah, I definitely love that approach. And I think Sean and I have also probably taken a similar approach in our careers, where between the two of us, I think we've worked on just about every position on a film set. And I agree with you. I think it really does help you, one, be a more empathetic person, but two, like be a more creative problem solver on set. Mm-hmm. And, understanding where other folks are coming from and helping them either learn and grow, or just, seeing it from their perspective rather than being frustrated when things aren't going the right way.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it definitely rounds you out, and it makes you a better filmmaker when you're there to help collaborate, or if you've seen a problem that they're going through and you've had some first-hand experience with that. So it's like you're able to help actually guide it or be useful to understanding how to help them problem solve.
Wait, so let's transition now and get into influencer. So first, can you tell us a little bit about where the origin of the idea came from? It's obviously Thailand plays a huge role in it. Did it start from the location, or did the premise come first?
Yeah, I think the premise was always there. I think Tesh and I kind of always made the joke about how often people will travel kind of all the way around the world and then go eat at McDonald's. And so it's kind of like, it kind of stemmed originally from that idea where we're always looking for kind of the known comforts or the known familiarity, and kind of diverting that with kind of trust. And when you see someone who looks like you're more likely to trust them. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? So I think that's where the initial concept. I had planned a trip to Southeast Asia and was going. and Tesh and I were kind of always writing different projects together, and this one kind of just stuck. And I was like, well, I'm going to be there, so why don't I kind of start writing some ideas down while I'm there? And then Tesh ended up coming and visiting Thailand with me, and we did kind of an initial scout in 2019, and it kind of all spawned from there and kind of slowly kind of uncovered itself. And then we were actually greenlit to shoot in early 2020, and then in a weird kind of gift, the pandemic really let the script breathe and gave us another year of kind of rewrites. And I think the movie has only become better because of it.
Oh yeah, getting another year of rewrites, actually, like, frustrating that you had to delay, but I'm sure, did anything significant come out of that, or was it more like polish sort of elements in the script, or did anything, really change in that year?
Yeah, I think a lot of polish, a lot of just really fleshing out the characters and fleshing out kind of how the story unfolds. There's a lot of discovery in this one of how exactly, with kind of the narrative structure of the film, how exactly we want to withhold information and kind of tease the different sections of the film.
Once that trip had happened and the scouting happened, how was actually shooting there? Because you mentioned the pandemic was letting it breathe, which means you ended up filming in some level of pandemic crisis in the last 3 years. But obviously the natural beauty there is an awesome benefit with the locations. But were there insanely unexpected challenges in capturing and shooting all those beautiful spots, or no?
Yeah, there's a lot of positive and negative. The pandemic actually helped us a lot with kind of locations and accessibility. It cut our crew down in our ability to, because of all of the kind of added costs of traveling during a pandemic and all the extra insurance with COVID and different stuff like that. Obviously, we were a very tiny crew. There's only like 11 of us most of the time. But I think like the fact that everything was just closed down and just starting to open up when we shot, which was like end of 2021, it was kind of a weird time where we kind of lucked out, where like there was a lot of resorts willing to, and different houses in different places that were just game to let us run free. Whereas I think in kind of peak 2019, when I was there the first time, we wouldn't have gotten access to half the stuff we were able to get. So I think, yeah, there's some positives and negatives. I think we kind of embraced, there was, in the original script, there was a lot more kind of tourism and busyness, where we were just hoping to kind of capture the crowded nature of it. And the way that Thailand's kind of been overrun by tourism almost to a negative fault. I think we ended up paring that back and just kind of embracing the emptiness and the isolation and the loneliness, which actually did kind of contribute to the story. So I think, yeah, there's good and bad to kind of shooting in a pandemic. I think overall it was, we were kind of lucky, but we didn't really know it at the time.
And the remote nature of everything, you said it was empty, and some people were probably glad to have you in any human contact, like you said, peak of the pandemic. But with it being so remote, was it hard to shoot certain spots? Was it hard to travel with grip equipment and such?
Surprisingly not. I mean, Thailand of all the Southeast Asian countries is kind of probably one of the most tourist friendly. Like, most people speak English. It's kind of designed for like backpackers to get around. So I think like for us, it was kind of the perfect country for what the movie was. So I think like, because they were really pushing to try to get tourism back because it's such a big part of their economy over there. So I think like, yeah, for us, we were doing some pretty difficult stuff where we were like hiking some mountains in the middle of the night and like doing stuff like that, where that definitely adds a challenge compared to kind of shooting in, say, North America, where you kind of have, your environment a little easier. But I think in terms of actually getting around the country, the infrastructure there is great.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that the much like Hawaii and other spots, it's over touristified, but like part of that's their lifeblood of the economy as well. So it's this weird catch-22, but kind of in a similar vein. In addition to the travel aspect you'd mentioned about influencers, it also tackles social media. I don't know how much you said it breathed in the pandemic when you kind of had time to flesh it out, but are you hoping people walk away with a little bit different perspective of being online? Or is it, I mean, were you trying to hammer that home, or are you just saying like, oh my God, I hate influencer culture? Or is there somewhere in the middle?
I think a big thing for Tesh and I is it's an exploration of kind of the medium, and we're not judging any individual person, because I think like we all kind of get trapped in different ways of how far we go about social media. Sure. and kind of the addicted nature of kind of wanting to be heard, which in essence is just very human. But when you kind of put this narcissistic spin on it, it can kind of get a little dangerous. And we're kind of setting up these young people who kind of look at that as like the highest attainable goal is, I want to be a famous YouTuber. It's like, well, what are you actually trying to be? Are you just trying to be famous? Because it just feels very shallow and vapid and kind of unsatisfactory. So I think for us, it was not it's not about judging the people doing it. It's kind of judging what this whole game is and how we kind of judge one another online and versus who we actually are offline.
Right. And I think that kind of shined through. There is an empathy to it. You mentioned like it's such a lonely existence to some of these people. And I think that shines with a couple of the lead characters.
Yeah, I mean, the title influencer kind of plays in a number of different ways in terms of who it's talking about and kind of what the subject matter. It's not like there's a couple different meanings of the title.
Yeah, and I think I was surprised by how much Madison, for example, one of the lead characters that we're first introduced to, played by Emily Tennant, you kind of expect on the premise maybe to dislike her right away, but I think the film does a really great job of portraying her as a complex human, right? She may be an influencer and may be looking for, who knows, validation, monetary gain, right, through this, but she's also has her own, set of baggage to deal with and recognizes that there's some cost to that activity. So I think did a really great job of playing with people's expectations there.
Yeah, I think for us, each character in the film, we were really looking for kind of those double sides where like you could hopefully judge them for what they're doing, but also get behind and how do we kind of pull those strings a little bit of how far could we take you on a journey with each character before you either support them or check out, or like where do you draw the lines of kind of the morality of what each of them are doing.
You also made an interesting decision to have the opening titles start about a third of the way into the film, which I'm always a big fan of doing something different with title sequences. So I definitely appreciated that. If you can, without spoiling anything, like, can you share why you made that decision?
Yeah, I think for us, Pritesh and I, we really like to play with structure when we're writing, and kind of modern audiences are very smart. They can see things coming a mile away. So how do you kind of keep them intrigued and hopefully surprise them in certain ways? So I think for us, a big fun thing seeing about like some of the reactions to like the trailer, for example, where people think we're spoiling the whole thing. We're really hoping that they'll still watch the movie because I think there's some really fun surprises along the way. But I think like for me, it's like we've seen kind of Save the Cat. We know what to expect from a lot of movies. We know kind of when we're supposed to expect a twist and when we're supposed to expect kind of a turn, and modern audiences sense that. So for us, we're always looking for ways like how can we kind of play with those expectations or utilize tropes in a way that we can kind of turn them upside down.
You just beautifully segued into what my next question was. I was going to ask about, it is so twisty, turny, and that was one of the things that I really appreciated about the film is that it genuinely surprised me. And, I think when you watch a lot of films, you watch a lot of thrillers, it can be hard to be surprised. But were there certain films that you were holding up as inspiration for that twisty, turny nature? Or alternatively, were there some films, that had certain key tropes that you specifically were targeting to play with?
Yeah, definitely a lot of Hitchcock. I think that was a big inspiration for us in terms of kind of like talking about how he he created the game for sure. So I think that was a big one for us. Talented Mr. Ripley was obviously a great reference for us in terms of just kind of playing with kind of characters that mold and shape and change. But yeah, I think between those two, those are probably the biggest for what kind of jumped out. A modern social media take on Ripley, for example.
Nice. No, I'm glad you mentioned the trailer because I saw the trailer before I saw the film, and I saw some folks in the comments saying like, "Oh, this gave away the whole movie," and I'm so glad to know it doesn't. So I might have to be an influencer myself and go on those comments and say, "No, it doesn't." So.
Trailer's always a tricky balance.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Selling it without. Yeah.
And you can't please everybody, whether you show too much or show not enough. They'll complain that you didn't show anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, stepping back and thinking about your career from the videos to the directing to the producing, do you have any advice for some budding filmmakers who are making their own path? I know everyone's trajectory is a little different, but like, do you have any macro or micro advice you could throw some aspiring ones' way?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just go out and do it. Like, especially now, like even when I was starting out, it was a little bit less accessible. There was still the SLRs were just coming into the picture. And so we managed to scrape and figure out a way to get like a red camera back then, which was a huge deal for us. But now it's like you can go get a Blackmagic camera and Like, I mean, we shot Influencer on just a couple Black Magics because we want on purpose, just because we wanted to be kind of low profile for a lot of the outdoor wide shots and just look like we could either build the camera up or we could strip it down to look like we're just tourists. And those cameras are incredible. Like, I think so the idea that you can just go spend a couple grand and have gear that make something look as good as something that's in the cinemas. I think the only real stop is just yourself and your ability to go out and actually do it. So I think for me, there's obviously different paths in terms of going into kind of the studio system, trying to build your way up that, or doing kind of like the commercial world or going to film school. But for me, it was just like, no, just pick up a camera and go shoot something, because you're going to learn way more just doing it, and you're going to get better very quickly if you just are constantly kind of practicing the craft.
No, and your camera knowledge came in handy, because this movie does look very, very good. And you having a kind of weigh in from that side of things, I know you would put the time in with the lenses and everything, which is another lesson I think some younger filmmakers. It does not hurt you as a director to please go learn your lenses.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like we just bought the gear for this shoot because of the fact that we were going into kind of territory where we risked breaking a bunch of stuff. Like, thankfully, somehow we didn't, but we were kind of like expecting. We had a couple different Black Magic bodies just because of the fact that we're going to destroy a couple of these. And like the difference between, I found it actually a lot more freeing in terms of having like a smaller camera versus like Spiral. We had the like Alexa with the big Cook anamorphics, and it's like trying to do inserts with that camera, you need like a whole team. Whereas when you're in Thailand and you just have this tiny little camera, it's like, yeah, the quality is going to be a little bit of a step down, but your flexibility and your ability to kind of shoot faster or kind of do more creative shots because the camera's so tiny. I think there's freedom and positives and negatives to both. So for someone who's starting out, like, I mean, we used gear you can just go buy at any sort of camera store.
Talking about the cameras and the size of them and everything just made me think too. I meant to ask you this earlier, but how'd you go about the full underwater sequence without spoiling anything? I don't want to say what the underwater sequence is, but did you shoot that in a particular tank, not in Thailand, or how was that?
Yeah, we shot it in Thailand. We just found actually we met some divers who had kind of a training pool. And so what we did is we used kind of tarp, and we put black tarp on all the edges of the pool, and we ordered a little like very sketchy underwater camera bag for the Blackmagic camera off of Amazon, which was like $200. And we're like, well, we may destroy a camera doing this, and it'd be a cheap solution or a very expensive one. And it worked. Like the bag held up. Probably wouldn't use it again, but it worked exactly what we needed. But it was a full day. Like we were in the water for a solid 10 hours for a very short sequence.
I love that, ordering the sketchy camera bag.
Yeah.
I think in the modern, the last few years at least, I think everybody's empathized with, oh my gosh, I need this weird specific thing, and the only place I can get it tomorrow is Amazon, and then it's always a gamble. I remember I had to order VHS tapes once for a film. It was like Amazon, and they were all broken and didn't work anyway. And so we had to go with something else. But so can definitely relate to that. We have wrapped the formal interview portion, and now we're going to jump into everyone's favorite, or maybe the part that everyone gets scared about because the name is intimidating, the Rapid Fire 15, which is basically a series of fun Proust-style questions just to get to know you better. It's not a cool test, so you can just say whatever comes to mind.
I'm in.
I think he's going to ace it.
I think so too. Seems like
no points, not a test, but he's still going to ace it.
Knows what he likes. All right, question 1. What movie do you think you have seen the most in your life?
A movie called Mr. Nobody. I think it was definitely a movie that when you watch it, when I watched it, it was a movie that I was like, this is the kind of movie I want to make. And I think the first time I watched it like every day for a week. So I think and I've just revisited a bunch of times in terms of the type of filmmaking.
I actually haven't seen that one.
Was that the Sarah Polley, Jared Leto movie? Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, that is
okay, I've never seen that either.
It's definitely worth checking out. It's a very creative film. It's kind of, I think if you watch it, you'll understand. Influencer is a very different film, obviously, but there's some things that I definitely have aspired to in terms of Jaco as a director.
That is possibly the most obscure one we've gotten for that answer. Most people are like Jurassic Park, The Goonies, Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, it's a movie I've just continually showed it to so many people and just always return to it often.
No, we like it. Number 2, what's the first film you saw as a youngster that really scared you or stuck with you or just kind of gave you nightmares forever?
Signs. I remember seeing that when it came out, and I could not sleep in my room. I had to sleep out in the living room for like a month. And my parents were getting very annoyed. I was scared that the aliens were going to come get us.
Is there a particular scene?
Yeah. That birthday party scene where the alien walks by, the jump scare.
Top 5 jump scare of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of the best jump scares.
My theater shrieked when that happened.
Yeah. that definitely, that image still sticks with me for sure.
100%. For me, it's the sounds when they're in the house of everything like that. That scene was always the scariest for me. But of course, the jump scare at the birthday party is fantastic. All right. What is your favorite horror movie franchise?
Oh, that's tricky. Oh man.
Haha. We finally stumped you. This one's hard because you can... Oh.
Yeah, that is tricky. I mean, probably the Scream series. I wasn't crazy about the new ones, but I liked, like, the originals are just classic.
I would say there's no bad Scream film in my opinion.
That would be it's a good gauge.
Higher batting average in most franchises for sure. In a similar vein, what is your favorite horror movie subgenre?
I mean, psychological, like anything that kind of gets into the mind, like anything in the kind of the vein of like Hereditary or those type of movies that are kind of getting into the human psyche, that explore some demons. I'm always a fan of.
That does not surprise me. All right, question 5. This one may make you think a little bit. What is your favorite needle drop and or like diegetic use of music in a film?
Oh, I think the opening of Vanilla Sky, but I'm honestly forgetting what the song is, which is kind of funny. But when he's running through New York and that song kicks in, I forget what song I'm playing. Yeah, probably.
From Rush Home with Love by Mint Royale?
Maybe.
I thought it was more of a iconic song, though.
Oh, I think was it Sigur Rós? I can't remember.
Oh, maybe.
But that sequence sticks.
There is a Sigur Rós and a Radiohead track in there, and I'm of those two because it's been a couple of years since I've seen
that. I can't remember. It was one of those.
There's a lot of good music in that movie. So
it's almost like Cameron Crowe knows how to use music in a movie.
So weird, given his movies record. Yeah.
Question number 6, the other one that's been breaking a lot of filmmakers lately. Do you have an all-time favorite director, or maybe just a favorite filmography of a director?
I mean, the most consistent and like Fincher stands out, but in terms of a filmography, he'd probably be the one where there's not a film he's made that I don't like, but I do. Yeah. I think he'd probably stand out the most.
That's a great answer.
Danny Boyle probably would be second, just because he's got such variety, and I think for me as a filmmaker, I've kind of loved to explore different genres. We've done like a coming of age comedy, and Influencer is more of a thriller, and Spiral is more of a straight horror film. So it's being able to explore a bunch of different mediums is definitely kind of inspiring.
For sure. I mean, I'm pretty much on board with any Fincher or Boyle film. I'll see them, and they've both done an interesting variety. So I think excellent choices. Question 7. What is your most memorable experience at a film festival?
Oh, film festival. I think my first, I'm trying to think of an actual experience. The first time I went to Fright Fest was like a fever dream. As a whole experience, I think that festival is just such a wild couple days. So I think like seeing kind of the films, they play films in this like massive IMAX theater and in the middle of London. So seeing your film on such a big screen was definitely kind of a standout experience.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be awesome.
And then do you have a favorite like road trip movie or travel movie, just kind of based on influencer and the location being so key? Is there one that stands out to you as like a really good location and or travel and or road trip film?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of it, Cameron Crowe, actually, like Almost Famous is a really fun kind of on the road. There's, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, it's obvious to kind of draw some similarities to The Beach, which is it's such a good, bad movie. And I think like it's such a fun one. Speaking of both Cameron Crowe and Danny Boyle, actually. Yeah, I think those two probably stand out.
Speaking of travel, you've been to a good number of beautiful locations around the world. What's your favorite place that you've ever visited?
Ooh, it's tricky. I mean, no place kind of stands out perfectly. I think Vietnam was my favorite country in Asia. Just the culture and the food and the people. But I don't know. I kind of traveled quite a bit. I worked with kind of a number of charities when I was in my early 20s and spent some time in like Africa. And that was pretty wild. A lot in Central America and kind of the different countries there. But yeah, I think Vietnam has been my favorite so far, but I definitely want to keep traveling.
Is that a combination of the beauty of the place or the people, the atmosphere?
Yeah, just a combination of everything. I think like the kind of the French fusion of food. I mean, obviously pho and like the different kind of sandwiches and stuff that they do are pretty incredible. But the people are just so friendly, and it's kind of like I love tourism, and I love like Thailand. It has its own kind of massive perks in terms of being able to travel so freely, whereas Vietnam is you have to get a pre-approved visa to get in, and it's a little bit harder to get around. But I think just the culture and the people and kind of meeting the kind of a combination of all the different factors.
Right. And similar to the locations and to the film festival experience, do you have a favorite concert you've ever attended or a very memorable concert experience that stands out?
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, so I grew up, my parents ran a small indie music label and did a lot of touring as a kid. So I kind of grew up with the novelty kind of wore off a little bit just because it was cool being behind the scenes, but concerts were not something I went to that much. But I think probably Vampire Weekend was one of the standout favorites, seeing them a number of years ago.
Well, that's very cool that you grew up in that environment. Sounds like just all around like family of artists, appreciators of art.
Yeah, a bunch of weirdos. But no, it was good. It was cool, like, because it was kind of the fun. Like there's some parallels to the kind of the film and the music world, just kind of being a bit gypsy like. So I got used to kind of being on the road all the time.
Oh, definitely, I can see that. Another music related question for you. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh man, I'm so bad at karaoke. I don't even know if I have.
What's the song that makes you sound least bad?
Honestly, I don't even know. I'm
so bad he avoids it, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I'll stand in the corner and attempt to go unforeseen. But which is not great for film festivals because it is the culture.
But that's the thing about karaoke is you're supposed to be bad. If you're good, you go be a singer. Everybody's terrible at it. But so the follow-up question will maybe be easier for you. So you don't have to sing it, but what is your walkout music? So if you're coming out to introduce your film and somebody's in the back and they have something to queue up, what's going to get everybody pumped up for your entrance?
Oh man, that's even harder. I'm not trying to think. Something by the Beastie Boys, maybe. I don't know.
I could see that.
Yeah, that'll work.
That'll work.
Fight for your right to party.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Question 13. We're changing gears a little bit here now. What's your favorite local eatery in Vancouver? Like if you were to take someone that was out of town, what's the spot you'd be like, oh, you got to eat here?
Yeah, there's a really great restaurant called Ask for Luigi's, which they do kind of a bunch of different pastas and different dishes. It's like a super small, intimate little spot. And they just did the Michelin star review, and somehow Ask for Luigi's didn't get one, which I feel is very undeserved, having been to a couple of the other restaurants. But yeah, no, I think that if you're in Vancouver, definitely check this place out. It's like a small little house that they've kind of turned into this incredible kind of pasta and different dishes.
Those are my favorite, like homes converted into restaurants, like actual houses where you can tell, like, am I eating in what used to be the laundry room or the bedroom?
Yeah, it's very cute. It's tiny. It's like as big as like a small apartment.
Very good. Number 14, if you could have the answer to one unknown question in the universe, what would it be? Examples being like, is there a God? Are there aliens? What's the meaning of life? What's the day I'm going to die? Is there something you really would kill to know if you could?
What does the answer 42 mean? I guess I don't know. That's like,
well, the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Yeah, exactly. what's the question? I don't know. What
come on, is there like a Canadian urban legend that you'd like to have debunked?
Yeah, where's Sasquatch? No, I don't know. It's a tough one. What's going on? Are we in a simulation, I guess, or are we the first one?
Ooh, some more like deep sort of metaphysical questions would be on your mind.
Probably.
That tracks with a little bit of his fandoms of like psychological horror and like human condition stuff. So and social media influencer stuff too. Yeah, it's a good one.
All right. Now we've approached the final question of the Rapid Fire 15. What would be your dream project to make? Like, whether it be like directing in, producing, writing, is there a particular genre, period, or a style that you'd really love to tackle, or a known IP that you'd like to adapt?
Yeah, there's a project we're trying to get off the ground that I've been trying to get off the ground for forever. Won't say too much yet, but it's kind of like a pseudo superhero flick, kind of in the style of Magnolia, with like kind of a bunch of intersecting stories. So hoping to get that off the ground soon. We'll see kind of how things go, but it's been in the works for a very, very long time.
I love when people answer this question with something that is actually tangible. Like, it's cool that you're making your dreams happen, which is like a wonderful statement to be able to make. Because I think if you ask most people, what's your dream project? It's something so far out that's not within reach. But I think that's very cool that you just talked about something that you're actually driving towards.
Yeah, it's been a project that we've kind of almost gotten off the ground a few different times, and you kind of are grateful it didn't go back in the day. Kind of similar to how Influencer, we kind of were gifted that extra year to kind of really sit with the script. It's kind of one of those things that it's continued to evolve and change, and I think like I'm hoping to kind of finally actually tackle it. I think it's definitely time to kind of go into it, but you kind of are, when you look back at kind of the state or your abilities back at the time, it's like, no, the universe, there's maybe some sort of energy putting you on pause to kind of be like, no, wait until you're a little more ready to tackle, because it is a kind of a much more ambitious project than kind of some of the previous ones we've done.
All right, you heard it here first. Curtis is begging for another global shutdown, so he's got some time to work on his next project. So every few years, shut it all down.
Shut it all down.
Let it breathe. No, so you aced it as predicted. The Rapid Fire 15. You did that. No sweat at all.
I tried. Music is a tricky one for me.
Yeah, right. I know. But again, I think I'm like you. I can't play a lick of music, but I do love it almost as much as I love film. And yeah, it's hard actually to kind of like pin down naming your favorite movies, like naming your favorite artists and albums and stuff. It's all like picking children. But no, we appreciate both the answers to that and then the interview. And speaking of making your dreams come true, like again, you've been putting in the work from the jump. You've been prolific with your output. May 26th, as of May 26th, folks are probably hearing this, it's already out. It is on Shudder. Stream this movie. As I said, Cameron and Aaron caught this at a festival. We've seen it. Becky and I, we are fans of this movie. This movie could use your support. Go on Shudder, watch it as of May 26th. Tweet about it. Don't be a dick. Don't tag Kurt if you don't like it. But no, the trailer does not give it all away. It's a very good movie. So yeah, please watch Influencer.
Thanks, guys.
No, thank you.
All right, Kurt, thank you so much. It was really fun chatting with you about Influencer, your career, and very impressed at the speed at which you were able to answer the Rapid Fire 15. Usually we stump people quite a bit more, but you only had a few in there where we made you pause. So thank you again for taking the time, and congratulations on the film, and can't wait to see what you have next.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, we appreciate the time and the answers. And we didn't know we were talking to our own future Cameron Crowe, who grew up in the music business and will one day do his magnus opus about growing up.
Not quite as cool as Rolling Stones, but it was fun.
May we all get the budget one day to have that much needle drop and diegetic music. That's the real hope.
Here.
Yeah. All right. Again, thank you, Kurt.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.